Born unlike ordinary people, Sakurajika had always been ostracized and gossiped about by classmates from a young age, and unloved by his family. This was the reality he faced in his dreams. In the bustling yet peaceful tofu shopping city, Sakurajika strolled down the streets. Suddenly, a gang started bullying a frail girl. Witnessing this, Sakurajika stepped in to add to the commotion, but the gang leader underestimated him. When words failed, violence ensued, and Sakurajika ended up beating the leader until he cried for his parents. The girl he saved chased after him to thank him. Looking around as if searching for something, Sakurajika shyly asked if she was talking to him, and then blushed. She cooked a delicious omelet, revealing that she knew Sakurajika was new to this troubled small town. Her name was Takabena Kotoa, an outsider who had also established herself here. Takabena's friendliness made Sakurajika suspicious. She admired his two-tone hair and eyes, which looked like marbles to her. Takabena was used to more eccentric people, so she found him quite normal. Sakurajika came to Fujian due to his poor academic performance, but excelled in fighting, a skill he hoped to use to rise to the top of the local scene, a goal that excited Kotoha. Sakurajika was enthusiastic, but Koto paid no mind as Yama finished his meal and went to pay. Before he left, Sakurajika handed him an item he had forgotten, holding candies in his hand as he walked down the street. Remembering that Yama had asked Kotoha to give them to him as a thank you for retrieving a gift for his grandchild. Kotoha confirmed Sakurajika's schooling at Fujian, but warned he would never be at the top. Strong as he was, but always alone. After a moment of peace, the thugs resumed their rampage. As Sakurajika confronted them, he calmly walked by, but the leader mocked his appearance. Sakurajika simply smiled, satisfied that this was a normal reaction. Kotoha's words echoed in his ears, ignoring the leader's taunts. When his gang learned he had been beaten, they rushed to settle the score. Alone, Sakurajika faced the gang without flinching, chanting on his own on the stage. As Kotoha washed dishes, she heard the commotion, ran out, and was taken hostage by the leader. Sakurajika swiftly kicked him in the face. As he spoke with Kotoha, another attacker struck from behind. Sakurajika spun around and kicked him into the wall. As the gang surged to attack him, unable to fight the whole gang and protect Kotoha, he chose to stand alone. As a stick was about to hit his head, a man in a Fujian uniform shielded him, then grabbed the stick and struck the gang leader's face. 3 Fujian members arrived. The gang recognized the newcomer as Higashi from Fujian. Though initially frightened, they regrouped and attacked the 4 defenders, who quickly fought off the thugs. Sakurajika watched in awe as one attacker snaked up on him, but Higashi quickly intervened. The town cheered on Higashi's group for driving away the thugs. Years ago, the town was terrorized by such gangs. But 2 years ago, Fujian high school students took control and became the town's protectors. To everyone, including Kotoha, the town needed Sakurajika, who felt uneasy about it, not wanting to be alone, but alienated by society. He had learned to protect himself, feeling safer alone. Kotoha's words confused him, and after a brief run, he flew up and kicked a thug in the face, then landed gently. In this town, he wouldn't be alone anymore. Sakura carried Shido, who complained of back pain, to Kotoha's restaurant. Despite his grumpiness, he helped because she said she needed it. Sitting at a familiar table, Sakura had become part of the town, often irritable, but always helping others. Today marked the new school year at Fujian High School. A blonde-haired boy wearing glasses entered outside. After hearing Shido greet him, Niji immediately stood up to return the greeting. He is also a freshman at Fujian High School. After Sakura looked at him, Niji and Sakura locked eyes. Kotoha explained that they were classmates, which took Niji by surprise, and he looked at Sakura curiously. He guessed Sakura was from outside the school and wondered why someone unknown like Sakura was there. Fujian had many strong people, but he only wanted to be the top. Niji seriously told Sakura that if he really aimed for that, he would go bald early. At 10 o'clock, Niji took the opportunity to show off his uniform. He also wanted to be a righteous ally. But as he reached the door, he clumsily bumped into it. Sakura wondered how such a clumsy, useless person got into Fujian, but she hoped, as they turned towards Sakura, he would turn towards them too. However, Sakura only cared that Niji was strong, at which point Kotoha was genuinely stunned. Sakura then left. While walking down the street, Niji thought about what Kotoha said and bumped into a tray of freshly baked pastries from a roadside shop. The owner warmly invited him to try a yakita pastry. Embarrassed, Niji declined as he wasn't hungry and walked away. The owner hurriedly ran to give him a bag of pastries to take along. Then a girl suddenly grabbed him, startling him and causing him to drop all his food, and she screamed for help. Meanwhile, Niji was beaten up by a group who mocked him, saying he didn't deserve to be a hero before leaving. Niji didn't take it, lying down and confronted the leader, only to be punched away. The group laughed mockingly at him. As the leader was about to deliver a final blow, Sakura arrived just in time to hit him with a hidden shoe. Niji thought Sakura had come to save him, but Sakura couldn't stand seeing the weak being bullied. The bullies charged at him, but when Niji opened his eyes, they were sprawled on the ground. The leader was grabbed by Sakura and received a beating. Sakura walked past Niji, who thanked her. Sakura hadn't come to save him, but wanted him to realize his own strength. The reason Niji joined Fujin was that in middle school, he was a victim of school bullying, and someone from Fujin had saved him. Since then, he changed his view of Fujin and wanted to join to become stronger. While Niji was crying over his weakness, the girl he saved came to thank him. She also thanked Sakura, who blushed with embarrassment. Sakura was about to leave when Niji called her back. He took out a notebook to ask her height, weight, preferences, skills, and blood type. After that, he awkwardly poked and prodded Sakura, which annoyed her. Niji kept sticking close to Sakura. After the fight, Sakura took out a pastry and ate it as they walked down Cherry Blossom Road, quickly reaching Fujin School. They then went to the class assignment board. Excited to be in the same class with amazing people, Niji paled when he saw a name. On the way, he asked Sakura to promise to be friendly with their classmates. Hearing Niji speak, Sakura got ready to respond. He opened the door to the classroom. Niji was scared, but Sakura was thrilled. A guy wearing an eye patch introduced himself as Leonardo DiCaprio. Niji, a Japanese person, seriously approached to talk about Sakura. Niji worried he would be bullied as an outsider. Sakura readied herself for a fight, but Suo patted him on the shoulder. He had heard about Sakura and thought it was awesome. All the students crowded around Sakura. The reason she came from outside was to become the top person at the school, making all her classmates gape in astonishment. A desk flew in, interrupting their conversation, brought by a long-haired person, the most dangerous person at the school, Sujishita Kyotogo. Niji was afraid, and so was the class, but Sakura was intrigued by him. Sujishita quickly moved to fight with Sakura. He had joined Bofujin before entering high school here, a rather strong person. If Sakura wanted to be the top, she had to surpass him first. The rest of the students watched nervously, and someone called for Suo to stop them. But Suo casually watched the exciting fight, knowing he wasn't strong enough to intervene. Despite the chatter around, Sujishita lunged at Sakura, thinking he would punch her face, but she smoothly dodged 145 degrees from his punch. Then she gently kneed Sujishita in the head and asked him for some blood. Everyone was stunned by the display. A fanatic like Sujishita intrigued Sakura, making her wonder how she could possibly lose. Both now stood seriously facing each other. While Sakura calmly enjoyed the situation, Sujishita was enraged, his face bloodied, instilling fear in others. They quickly clashed, neither willing to back down, but ultimately stopped by the school's loudspeaker. Sakura, after regaining her composure, encouraged Sujishita to continue. However, everyone else was focused on the loudspeaker and ignored their surroundings. The person speaking through the loudspeaker was Yumira Hajime, the leader of Fujin. No wonder everyone was so attentive. Yumira spoke cryptically, leaving everyone puzzled, except for Sujishita's fanatical followers who nodded vigorously. Yumira was urging everyone to enjoy their youth and inviting them to go to the beach and eat shaved ice during the summer. Niji couldn't help but laugh at the mention of shaved ice, while he was shaken by Sujishita holding his head. Niji said he was happy just to be let go. Yumira then reminded everyone, even if there were disagreements, to not fight upon first meeting. Sujishita, like a child caught fighting by his mother, quickly wiped the blood from his face, but Yumira had seen everything. Yumira emphasized important rule everyone must remember, to protect the city, which is the only law here. All students loudly agreed. Both Sakura and Sujishita looked shocked, like children who are caught fighting and are forced by adults to apologize and make peace. Sakura, blushing, screamed in refusal. Suo tapped into Sakura's ambition to be the leader to calm him down. Suo used the same tactic on Sujishita, asking what if Yumira saw him fighting. Not wanting to upset his idol, Sujishita was the first to extend his hand in peace to Sakura. After an internal struggle, Sakura went over and shook hands with Sujishita, marking the first time she shook hands with someone without fighting. However, both were not genuinely reconciled. Afterward, Sakura was dragged away by classmates who praised her endlessly for being the first to give Sujishita a beating. Suddenly, someone rushed in, urging everyone to come outside. They were all needed as painters. The story shifts back 30 minutes when Higashi yelled at everyone for being late to the field. He watched the clock tick by, and Sakura, after calming down, recognized Higashi. Sakura told Niji about the previous day when he saved Kotoa and was grabbed by Higashi, who covered his mouth and pushed him away. Sakura confronted him about mentioning the incident with Kotoa there the previous day. Higashi, spitting in anger, forced Sakura to dodge. After leaving a message for Sakura, Higashi left. The cawing of crows overhead added a sinister feel to the school atmosphere. Sakura returned to her friends, curious about what was said that required Higashi to take stomach medicine, something Niji noted carefully since Higashi was one of the 4 kings of Bofujin. Later, Higashi led everyone on a patrol around the town. Yumimi had tasked Higashi to keep an eye on Sakura and Sujishita, so they patrolled together. While Sakura was discontented with just patrolling, Sujishita complied obediently. Sakura was bored with wandering around. She wanted to confront troublemakers directly, but as town protectors, they could not start conflicts. Wearing their patrol uniforms made smaller groups avoid them. They also helped local residents with small tasks, like helping an elderly lady up the stairs. And currently, they were painting over graffiti-covered walls, after which the owner treated them to food. They continued patrolling and eating fish cakes. Higashi explained that they used to find joy in fighting, but now they enjoyed helping people. These activities were quite exciting, and the group moved towards an overpass with a high-speed train track above. Niji advised Sakura not to cause trouble, as the bridge marked the boundary between Bofujin and another gang, akin to a border between 2 countries where citizens are not supposed to cross without permission. Suddenly, 2 feet from above landed on Shishidozen's face. The only ones capable of such a feat were the kindergarten duo, Sakura and Sujishita. Azuma Yukinaji and Kano Mami Nozu watched with delight as their teammate, bloodied and unconscious from a nosebleed, lay on the ground. Behind them, the vice president of Shishidozen approached, silencing the 2 of them who dared not make a sound. Higashi felt uneasy, noting that of all people, this one had shown up. Togum pushed up his glasses, looking towards Fujin, and asked about the motionless teammate. Higashi approached and explained that the person from the other side had chased a student from their side. Shiju Katashi shouted that Fujin had invaded their territory, only to be silenced by Togame, who smashed a bottle on his head and then beat him severely despite his injuries. Sakura and Togame approached each other. One spoke quickly, the other so slowly it was almost sleep-inducing. Afterwards, Togame promised to find a suitable place to give Sakura a proper fight. He led his group away, not forgetting to say a mocking farewell to Sakura, which infuriated her. Niji was genuinely worried about Sakura provoking Togame, but Togame was not one to be easily messed with, so the outcome would likely be the same regardless of the provocation. Regardless, the incident had occurred, and Higashi took responsibility upon himself. He led Sasaki, a junior high student, and the rest back to school. Higashi reported the situation to Yumamura, and the group went to the rooftop to find him. It turned out he was gardening, preparing fruits and vegetables for the summer. Despite looking like a primary school student, he was the leader of Fujin. Yumamura appeared to be aware of everything yet acted as if he knew nothing. His main concern was his gardening. While everyone was tense, Suo patted Sasaki on the shoulder to ease his stress. Sakura complained about the tediousness of sorting vegetables, angering Shizuka Tashi because she dared to criticize his idol. Yumamura intervened, explaining that tomatoes are tomatoes and chilies are chilies, they aren't the same. He always knew how to ease the atmosphere. Sasaki then stood up and explained that he had seen a thief in the shopping district and had chased him into Shishidozen territory without realizing it. He thought he'd meet his grandparents sooner than expected due to the ensuing beating, but thanks to Sakura and Sujishita, he was saved. His admiration for Bofujin had made him want to prove his strength, but he ended up causing trouble on rival territory. Yumamura not only refrained from punishing Sasaki, but also thanked him for bravely protecting the city's people. Yumamura was thrilled about how Sakura and Sujishita had kicked Shishidozen away impressively. Laughing heartily, Yumamura commented that their rivals must be furious because they don't understand reasoning. Higashi took responsibility for not keeping a closer watch on the 2. Inside, Higashi was suffering from stomach pain, but Niji finally spoke up, Knowing and acknowledging that everyone knew Sakura was the one who escalated things to a peak and was beyond saving, Sakura jumped up to defend herself, arguing that the other side was spouting nonsense about strength being everything and mocking the weak, which had challenged her pride and made it impossible for her to hold back. She had merely intended to kick a little. Everyone stared as Sakura boldly justified herself, holding nothing back. Yumamura stood up, patted Sakura on the head in approval, agreeing that Shishituzen was too arrogant. He had heard of Sakura's actions and thanked her for standing up righteously for the people. Their big family. Having a reliable junior like her was a joy for him, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief and smiled, except for Sujisita, who was visibly jealous. Sakura felt warmth for the first time and now understood why everyone listened to Yumamura. It felt safe around him. Kaji called Higashi with a weak voice, uttering a few words about Shishitogen. The leader of Shishitogen had dragged a defenseless Kaji to Fusion School. Tamazawa, wielding a loudspeaker, issued a challenge to Yumamura, boasting of being stronger than the vice president Togame. A powerful aura of combat passed by, and Yumamura, putting on a coat, walked downstairs. Sakura was shocked, and everyone followed Yumamura. He told them to stay back and wait. Sakura wanted to fight, but Yumamura didn't want to repeat himself. His presence was truly overwhelming. Yumamura at this moment seemed like a different person from before, with Fusion students lying motionless on the schoolyard below. Tamazawa only wanted to fight Yumamura. With an unruffled demeanor, Yumamura gently said to stop, suggesting they call it even since Fusion had struck first. But the opponent, agile and quick, launched a kick at Yumamura, who calmly cut Tamazawa's leg with one hand. He laughed dismissively, not caring about the consequences, determined to face Yumamura in a battle no matter what. Tamazawa wanted Yumamura and Fusion on his side because leading alone felt lonely, while Yumamura was always cheerful and playful. Annoyed by this, he wanted to dominate and bring him under his wing. However, before he could confront Yumamura, Togame arrived with Shishituzen's underlings at Fusion, and Sakurazawa along with others came out to meet the challenge. Tamazawa was fuming because he wanted a one-on-one fight with Yum, not a group brawl. Togame informed Tamazawa that a duel would be difficult since Fusion students were around. But Yumamura ordered everyone to keep their distance and agreed to a one-on-one fight with Tamazawa. Meanwhile, the Shishituzen group was itching for a fight, mocking Fusion for their supposed fear and stupidity. Suo praised Shishituzen for their masculine appearance yet feminine demeanor, finding it endearing. Togame suggested Tamazawa postpone the fight as it was getting dark and they wouldn't be able to see the bruises on Fusion's face. But the mood wasn't just down to Tamazawa and Yumamura. This led to several pairings for fights. Yum with Chuji, Togame with Sakurazawa, the long-haired man with Sujishita, and the delicate boy with Suo. All were eager for the match. A mysterious figure from Shishituzen wanted to compete with Higashi, which turned out to be Sakurazawa. The participants and their matches were scheduled. Fusion's first-year group gathered at Kotoa's cafe, with Niji worried about the outcome. He feared if Yumamura lost, it might provoke Sujishita. Niji worried Fusion could be overtaken and disappear. Despite Niji's concerns, Sakura ate ravenously as if starved for 7 years, then demanded to go home. Waiting long without seeing Yumamura's group, usually before a fight, Kotoa's cafe was the gathering place for Fusion. Just as they were about to leave, Yumamura's group arrived. It had been a long time since he had seen Kotoa. He boasted about his vegetables and promised to send them to her soon. Sakura was shocked to discover Kotoa was Yumamura's girlfriend, which led her to angrily clarify that they had grown up together in an orphanage, and he saw her as a sister. Sakura had thought Kotoa was over 20, which angered Sujishita, who threw a chair. In reality, she was just mature for her age. Kotoa was a forbidden subject for Yumamura. Anyone who touched her was in serious trouble. Previously, Shishituzen was just a gang seeking power through fighting. Although they had a history of brawls with Fusion, this fight was exhilarating. Since Tamazawa became leader, bad rumors started. But this wasn't the first time. Both Tamazawa and Togame sought absolute power, caring about their team more than anything. Surprisingly, everything unfolded this way. Higashi summarized while eating. The reasons might stem from Tamazawa. They planned to clarify things the next day. As fighting was also a form of dialogue, sometimes fists helped understand opponents better than words. Kotoa cleaned up the cafe for the next day's battle. As the appointed time neared, Yumamura led the group through a tunnel to fight. It was Sakura's first fight for someone else. Nervously exciting. Tamazawa and Shishituzen were already waiting. Tamazawa led the way, with Yumamura's group leisurely following. Most of Shishidozen's territory included lively night bars. As they were chatting merrily, Sakura, Tsujishida, and Suo stopped. Only then did they realize Nichi had followed, shyly clinging to the group, saying he wanted to observe and learn more. After that, everyone continued to the territory of Shishidozen, which was the abandoned Ozian movie theater, now known as the Ozai base for Shishidozen. Tamazawa led everyone to the door, where the entire Shishidozen gang was waiting for Yumira's group. Yumira knew this duel wouldn't be simple. Niji was terrified, trembling with his head bowed. Yumira reminded Niji that if he was here to learn, he needed to keep his eyes forward. He also mentioned that the match was primarily between him and Tamamea, so winning or losing didn't matter to the others. Sakura disagreed, arguing that since they were here to fight, they must win, not lose. Tamazawa stepped onto the stage, excited to compete against Yumira. However, Togum spoke up, stating it wasn't right for the leader to fight first and suggested they start from the lower ranks. Thus, the long-haired man went first. Tsujishida gave him a deadly glare and stepped up to compete. Sakura called him back, reminding him that their battle wasn't finished, so losing was not an option. Tsujishida only had to win. Tsujishida and Azuma fought fiercely, each capable of breaking ribs with a single punch. Yumira warned not to underestimate them. Azuma, knowing Tsujishida idolized Yumira, taunted Yumira to distract his opponent. When Tsujishida turned to look at Azuma quickly landed a powerful punch on Tsugishida's face, mocking him as foolish for getting distracted and receiving a punch. However, his gloating didn't last long as he was suddenly grabbed by the arm, thrown down with a swift strike, and knocked unconscious. Tamamea was thrilled by Tsugishida's attack, while Tagame remained eerily calm, grabbing the excited Tamaza by the shirt. Tsujishida approached Yumira, who praised his stubbornness and expressed strong faith in his junior. Sakura wasn't surprised by Tsugishida's victory. Having fought him before, Suo knew Sakura didn't acknowledge Tsugishida's strength, but Sakura merely boasted about Tsugishida's resilience. Tagame seemed mesmerized, not moving or speaking until he stood up and walked back to the stage. Yumira's group was surprised by this. Tamamea had two underlings clean up Azuma, but he was too heavy. They struggled to carry him to Yumira's group, then casually dropped him at their feet. Before leaving, one of them kicked Azuma's unconscious face, displaying the ruthlessness of the Shishidozen. Sakura couldn't help but speak out against it. Two fighters looking for trouble approached, but Suo reminded Sakura to use fists, not words. They wanted to fight both of them. Tamamea intervened because Sakura and Suo's opponents weren't them. Next, Sakura wanted to fight, but Suo stepped in since it was his turn by the order. Sakura shouted in protest, but to no avail. Suo called the delicate boy Kanyuma onto the stage. Kanyuma, visibly nervous and biting his nails, walked onto the stage. Suo stood up and apologized, admitting he had underestimated Sakura's ambition to be the strongest because he always put his heart into his words and actions, and so he couldn't afford to lose. Yumira wanted to know more about Suo. According to the wise man Niji's records, Suo was known to be strong but had never won. Little was known about Suo, so his true strength was a mystery. According to Yumira, Suo was a very kind person. Kanyuma was angry that his brother Azuma had been knocked unconscious. So, with a gentle smile, noted that it was only when Kanyuma became the victim that he reacted so vocally, like a child who couldn't bear hardship. Enraged, Kanyuma charged at Suo. Using his agility and hands, Suo quickly dispatched the boy. Then, in a taikai pose, Suo mockingly invited Kanyuma to a lesson in maturity in just a few seconds. With one hand behind his back and the other gesturing a welcome, Suo successfully attracted the elementary school boy. Suo swiftly dodged and counterattacked, causing Kanyuma to tumble to the ground. Even in defeat, the boy was flashy. Kanyuma, refusing to accept defeat, charged again. Suo grabbed Kanyuma and performed a few dance moves before gently setting him on the ground. Shishidozen thought Kanyuma was joking around and yelled at him to fight seriously. However, they didn't realize that Kanyuma was actually overwhelmed by Suo, who instantly neutralized everything Kanyuma tried to do. Yumira laughed delightedly, knowing that Suo was more than just a kind person. To Sakura, Suo was not kind at all. He only saw him as a nasty person because Sakura could see through Suo's tactics. Suo didn't leave his opponents alive or dead, but turned them into a mockery. If Kanyuma were in his shoes, he'd rather just die. Perhaps Suo was annoyed by Shishidozen's behavior. Higashi and Yumira both noticed that Suo was acting on emotion. Yumira thought it was because Suo had recently been influenced by someone and looked toward Sakura. So tossed Kanuma around like a ball. Kanuma was like a clown in front of the audience. The majority of Shisatuzan screamed for Kanuma to fight properly. Kanuma glanced around the audience, including Tamazawa and Tagame. He was breathless, remembering the disaster that befell the Shisatuzan members who lost to their opponents. It couldn't go on like this. Kanuma shouted desperately, then charged at Suo with a fist raised. But Su's long legs, over 8 meters, blocked him. Suo spoke the answer Kanuma was thinking at that moment. It was that he was imagining himself becoming the object of ridicule, which is necessary to become an adult. Kanuma, terrified, sat down hard. Suo had guessed everything right. Suo reached out, ready to make Kanuma's imagination a reality. Just then, Togame intervened. Kanuma lost this match. Suo was not only agile, but also good at psychological tactics. Tamazawa woke up as the match ended. Kanuma didn't understand why the match was stopped. Tagame replied that trying was useless and declared that Kanuma was no longer on their team. Suo walked down. Only now did those from Shishidozen realize that the first-year student from Bofugen was not easy to scare. Yumira stood up to praise Su's strength. Suo happily thanked him. Niji asked what martial arts technique Suo used. Suo didn't know. It might be a combination since his master was self-taught. Niji had more information in his profile. Higashi said he was acting on emotion today. Usually, Suo isn't like this, but Sakura's inspiration motivated him to change. Sakura demanded Suo to take their fight seriously, but Suo casually said fighting with Sakura was bothersome. Then, Sakura rushed toward Suo. Niji struggled to hold him back, while Yumira felt they would make a good team. Kanuma slowly pulled Azuma next to Yumira's group. Azuma slowly opened his eyes, twisted in pain, then crawled next to Kanuma. The two friends connected in their defeat. Tagame looked towards the rival school. Next, Sakura stood up, eager to fight, but Sako from Shishidozen stood up and pointed towards Higashi. Higashi stood up and said, "This one is for me," thanking Sakura for taking on Tagame for him. Higashi and Sako went up on stage. The two had a reunion after a long separation. Sako had grown a lot, even though he had joined Shishidozen for some reason. Higashi was determined to win this match. Maji eagerly anticipated this battle. Not keeping everyone waiting, Sako and Higashi quickly engaged. Sako charged at Higashi, who just defended. Sako had become much stronger, but Higashi hadn't attacked yet. Sako thought Higashi still saw him as the child he once was. Then Sako attacked with a kick at Higashi, who now finally fought back, trading punch for kick. Sako powerfully kicked towards Higashi, but faked a pullback to let Higashi dodge. Continuously, Sako pushed Higashi into a corner. Shishidozen loved watching Sako fight. Even Tamazawa was excited, cheering him on enthusiastically. Sako was one of the top 5 in Shisatuzan. Even against Higashi, one of the 4 heavenly kings of Bofugen, he would not lose. According to Tamazawa, Togame didn't understand what Sako was thinking because when he joined Shisatuzan, he had put in a lot of effort. Normally Sako was quiet, but today, he talked a lot. He faced Higashi directly, very determined and always serious, finding nothing interesting about it. Then he delivered a strong punch towards Higashi, forcing him to step back. Sako noticed that Higashi had not improved. In fact, he seemed weaker than before. Higashi realized that his younger counterpart was more talkative than before. In the past, when he taught him, the boy wouldn't utter a word, as if touched in a sensitive spot. Sako quickly kicked twice at Higashi, then performed a beautiful spinning kick that sent Higashi flying into the wall. Standing over Higashi, Sako claimed that not only had he improved, but Higashi had grown weaker because he was hanging out with the likes of Yumira and Fugen. As he spoke, he glanced at Yumira's group. His word struck a nerve with the likes of Sakura, who angrily yelled at Higashi. As Sakura advanced, he was pulled back by Niji. Suo smiled because Sakura was starting to see them as friends, redirecting his anger toward Suo. Yumira called for Sakura to calm down. Then he spoke with Sako, reminding him that Higashi was one of the 4 heavenly kings of Bofugen, once equal to Tamaten, a team leader. Yumira asked if Sako knew Tamoten's other name, and as Higashi stood up and clutched Sako's shoulder, he admitted it had been a long time since he'd been kicked like that. Then he delivered a powerful punch to the ground, sending Sako flying. Indeed, Sako had grown much stronger. Higashi gently smiled at Sako, revealing that Tamaten's other name was Bethamaten, a war deity. Higashi stood up, took some stomach medicine, and reminisced about the old days, when Sako was bullied at school for being a good student. Back then, Seiko's sunshine was Higashi. It was ironic that they were now fighting each other. A captivating duel with Higashi as the strongest in the town. Sakura pouted, wondering why Higashi hadn't shown his strength from the start. Suo explained it was because of Sakura's encouragement. On stage, Higashi and Sako were evenly matched, but it was clear that Higashi had the upper hand, surprising Sako with his strength. Since leaving Sako for Bofugen, Higashi had enjoyed a happy and relaxed life. Why was that? Higashi had told Sako that he fought off bullies who only picked on the weak. Then he reached out and grabbed Sako's frail hand. Sako begged him to teach him how to fight, and Higashi obliged, always strong, with others following him and Sako too. Under a shower of falling cherry blossoms, Higashi graduated, aiming next for Fusion. Sako believed Higashi would lead at Fusion and would do anything to help him reach the top, planning to join Fusion the following year. Higashi stopped him, advising Sako not to follow him to Fusion as he would be joining Yumira, and thus would not lead. He wanted Sako to find new goals. They parted ways at the bridge, and since then Sako had been fighting to become stronger, meeting Tamazawa and Togame and joining Shishidazen, motivated by the pursuit of absolute strength, fighting strong opponents to become stronger himself, and to defeat Higashi. So now, he couldn't afford to lose. Having bet everything on becoming stronger, Sako launched an attack and jumped behind his opponent, spinning to punch his senior. Higashi caught it, spinning to kick Sako in the face. Sako was in pain but refused to lose, using all his strength to punch, which Higashi caught. Like before, when he taught Sako to fight, Higashi apologized for not living up to his junior's expectations, then punched Sako in the stomach. Sako slid down, clutching Higashi's pants, and Higashi could only apologize. Sako understood that Higashi didn't want him to follow out of concern, but he didn't want to be dismissed like that. His lifelong obsession was to become stronger and stay by the side of the one he loved. Higashi was a name deeply ingrained in Seiko's heart. Then, Sako collapsed unconscious, leaving all members of Shishidazen silent. They were impressed by the performance of Higashi and Sako, despite Seiko's loss. The status of the Heavenly Kings of Bofugen wasn't just a title. As everyone gasped in awe, Niji was stunned, recognizing the greatness of the match and Seiko's strength. Yet he always remained behind Higashi, the man he pursued his whole life. Togame stood up, signaling to everyone that anyone could carry Sako down. The members of Shishidazen remained silent, showing their respect for Sako. Higashi unhesitatingly carried his junior down, while Togame approached to apply Shishidazen's rule for dealing with the loser to Sako. Higashi stopped him, saying whatever you want to do can wait until after the fight is over, because they still didn't know what would happen. Then Higashi stood up and walked towards his teammates. Niji stood up, bowed, and said, "You've had a hard time," Suo nodded in agreement. "You've had a hard time," and next to Yumira, who also said, "You've had a hard time." Yumira praised Higashi's spinning kick. Higashi asked Yumira if he didn't want to ask anything more, to which Yumira responded that if Higashi wanted to share, he would listen. That was the story he wanted to hear. They were friends and teammates who respected each other's stories, understanding each other without needing them to be told. And that's the first 6 episodes of Windbreaker. See you all in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Togame was lost in a flashback to a dark time in his life, but he snapped out of it when he was called up for his turn to fight. He turned to Sakura, who was ready to battle. As the fight was about to begin, the Lion's Head members were more excited about this one than the previous 3. Sakura stepped onto the stage, receiving words of encouragement from his friends. Yumimi reminded him that fights are like conversations and should be enjoyed, but Sakura wasn't sure he agreed with that definition. Nonetheless, he felt something indescribable when facing a strong opponent, so he decided to focus on taking down Togame. Togame walked onto the stage slowly. Noticing Sakura's impatience, he advised Sakura not to rush all the time, enjoying taking it slow. They both got into combat stance, waiting for the other to make a move. Sakura struck first with an overhand punch, but Togame countered and pushed him to the ground. Before Togame could finish the knockout, Sakura used his leg to break free. Watching this, Hiraji thought about how he had learned that Sakura was a skilled fighter who could take on anyone, but Togame was different. As the second in command of a group that values strength, Togame was on another level. Sakura taunted Togame for moving fast despite preaching about going slow. But Togame was surprised Sakura thought this was fast. Togame could go much faster, but was taking his time to prolong the fight. Sakura welcomed the challenge, urging Togame to come at him with everything. Togame charged in to grapple Sakura, but was countered. So far, Sakura had only been able to run and dodge as Togame outpaced him. Murray began to worry for Sakura's safety, but Yumamaya expected as much from Togame, who had been at the top of Lion's Head with no one coming close to his number 2 spot. Togame's speed was incredible, but gradually, Sakura adjusted to it until he finally dodged Togame and landed a kick on the back of his head. However, that doesn't stop Togame. He pushes himself back up and praises Sakura for finally getting on his level. Just before grabbing Sakura's leg and slamming him to the floor, he tries to stomp him out with his lethal wooden slippers, but Sakura rolls out of the way in time. Togame, irritated, tells Sakura that his talking pisses him off and attempts to stomp him out again. Sakura tries to counter by grabbing Togame's legs, but Togame counters his counter, slamming Sakura's face into the ground. Lion's Head members are ecstatic to see their leader beating up Sakura. When Togame goes to continue the fight, he finds that Sakura is already out cold and expresses disappointment. He calls Sakura lame for acting self-righteous earlier without having the strength to back it up. He mocks Sakura, saying he only has confidence because he is surrounded by strong people. But alone, he can't do a thing. Sakura wakes up, unable to stand listening to Togame anymore, and throws a punch. Togame easily dodges it, but Sakura uses this as a distraction to grab Togame's arm and twist it, getting himself free. Once on his feet, Sakura charges at Togame again, this time landing a double kick to Togame's face. Sakura admits he may be surrounded by good people now, but if Togame thinks he only got this far by hiding in a friend group while being shunned and rejected his whole life, then Togame will never beat him. Sakura attacks again, putting Togame on the ropes. No one can believe how much Sakura has improved in such a short time. Sakura yells that if he wins this fight, Togame will have to admit that Lion's Head's philosophy of only valuing strength is stupid. He then kicks Togame across the face, sending him stumbling back. Togame, enraged by Sakura's statement, regains his footing and delivers a powerful kick to Sakura's chest, knocking the wind out of him. As Sakura gasps for air on the ground, Togame walks up and tells him he knows nothing about Lion's Head. Their philosophy aims to push everyone to new heights of strength, while Sakura is just playing hero. Togame smashes Sakura's face into the floor, and it seems Sakura won't be getting up this time. Togame laughed, agreeing that Lion's Head was the home of the strong, but it wasn't for scum like them. He had been taking jackets from more and more scumbags to keep Lion's Head true to its original values. When the incident with Bayfriend occurred, he informed Tomiyama, hoping it would change Tomiyama's views on strength. Instead, it led to unnecessary fights and a drastically different Lion's Head. Now, when Sakura asked what he wanted to do, Togame seriously considered moving to the mountains. Sakura called him out for daydreaming and talking about morals despite scummy actions. Admitting Togame's strength, Sakura criticized his behavior as lame and vowed to beat him until he realized his mistakes. Only then would Togame be cool enough for Sakura to want to fight him. Togame laughed, noting that Sakura was talking a lot for someone who had been beaten up a few minutes ago. However, Sakura didn't care. No matter how strong his opponent, he would never back down and would never change his mind. After hearing this, Togame is thrust into a flashback where he recalls succumbing to Tomiyama's misguided notion of strength. This distraction allows Sakura to strike him in the neck. Realizing his mistake, Togame laughs to himself and turns to punch Sakura in the face, though the punch hurts. Sakura is pleased that Togame is finally taking the fight seriously. Togame, now respecting Sakura, removes his shoes and undoes his hair, determined to fight with all his might, just what Sakura wants. Their battle intensifies, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. Despite the brutality, both are smiling. Togame lands several solid hits on Sakura, but none are enough to bring him down, and Sakura inflicts similar damage on Togame. The other Furin members knew Sakura was a good fighter, but they are amazed by his skill. Tomiyama watches blankly, noting the enjoyment both fighters derive from the bout. Sakura admits he once thought Togame was a jerk, but now he is enjoying the best fight of his life, partly because Togame respects him. When Sakura's punch is dodged, Togame connects with a gut punch, causing Sakura to stagger, but still look annoyingly happy. Despite the damage, Sakura's movements become smoother, exciting him even more. They charge at each other one last time, both landing kicks to each other's faces, finally collapsing to the ground. Lying on the ground, catching their breath, they laugh at how much fun they had. Togame never knew fighting could be so enjoyable, and neither did Sakura. As the fight has gone on long enough, Togame suggests they finish it once and for all. Sakura agrees, and they charge at each other one final time, winding up for the decisive punch. As Sakura's fist closes in on him, Togame recalls Sakura's earlier words about never backing down from an opponent, even if they're stronger. This realization makes Togame reflect on the day Tamiyama lost his sense of strength. He wishes he had fought Tamiyama to show him his error instead of ignoring his misguided friend, allowing him to continue on a destructive path. Togame's failure to assert himself stemmed from his weak mentality, a problem Sakura doesn't have. Sakura confidently asserts his beliefs and is likely to become much stronger. Togame hopes Sakura remains the determined fighter he is today. Sakura's fist connects first, signaling Togame's loss. As Togame falls, he thanks Sakura for demonstrating true strength. On the ground, Togame raises his hand, conceding defeat and declaring Sakura the victor. The Lion's Head members, shocked by their captain's surrender, can't believe what they heard, nor can Sakura. But Togame's declaration is clear: he gives up, making Sakura the winner. However, Sakura isn't pleased, knowing Togame had more to give. He asks why Togame chose to surrender, but is interrupted when Tamiyama jumps onto the stage, praising Sakura's strength and expressing a desire to fight him. Since Togame's match is over, Tamiyama calls out Yumiya for his own fight. Sakura tries to stop Tamiyama, wanting to resolve his match, but Togame stands to correct his earlier mistakes. He tells Tamiyama to end the conflict, but before he can touch him, Tamiyama hits him with a swift roundhouse kick, sending Togame flying. Tamiyama, unable to stand the sight of Togame, tells him to shut up. This earns Sakura's wrath, who grabs Tamiyama by the collar, ready to punch him. Just before Sakura's punch lands, Yumiya arrives on stage and catches Sakura's arm. He asks Sakura to let it go, but Sakura is determined to wipe the smug look off Tamiyama's face. Yumiya understands that Sakura's anger on Togame's behalf signifies the bond they formed through their fight, but insists that Sakura sit this one out. The battle between the two leaders is extremely intense. Tamiyama continuously uses his speed and agility to attack his opponent. Yumiya, on the other hand, is a true tank, taking a lot of damage without flinching. He's the toughest monster in the city. This frustrates Tamiyama, who feels his punches are doing nothing. Tamiyama tries a feint, slipping under Yumiya's legs and kicking his back, but Yumiya counters with a powerful punch. Fortunately, Tamiyama dodges in time, otherwise, he'd be in the hospital. Though Yumiya's attacks are slow, they are incredibly powerful. Leader Furin mentioned that his opponent's punches lack weight because he doesn't carry any burdens. These words annoy Tamiyama, but he still doesn't fully grasp their meaning. Tamiyama wants to prove these words meaningless by defeating Yumiya and continuing the fight. It must be said that Yumiya's attacks are precise, with no wasted movements. If the first punch lands, a series of combos follows immediately, creating an impressive sequence. However, they are not very effective because Yumiya can take hits so well. Waiting for his opponent to tire, Yumiya lands a punch on Tamiyama that makes the world spin, almost knocking him out. Tamiyama admits the punch was strong but insists he must achieve freedom, and Yumiya is the mountain he must overcome. Yumiya asks what kind of freedom Tamiyama is seeking: financial freedom, freedom of speech. It sounds mocking, and Tamiyama tries to kick Yumiya in the face, saying he seeks the freedom to find joy. Yumiya asks what kind of joy he wants: loneliness or happiness in a world where losers are cast aside. Tamiyama doesn't care and says his joy comes from fighting strong opponents like Yumiya. But Yumiya doesn't think so. While fighting, Yumiya sees no joy in Tamiyama. It makes sense, though. How can one be happy when getting beaten up like a dog? Yumiya, with his experience, knows Tamiyama is lying to himself, which is why he can never be satisfied no matter how much he fights. This is why Yumiya sees him as living a miserable life from the beginning. This statement makes Tamiyama furious, unable to accept the truth. As Tamiyama rushes to attack, Yumiya, dodging, says he sympathizes with him. Sissy Torin used to be different, with members always happy, but everything changed when their leader lost his way. Yumiya dislikes this, and with a powerful punch to Tamiyama's face, he says Tamiyama is the reason the members' attitudes have changed. Yumiya speaks the truth on behalf of the Sissy Torin members. This makes Nirio grateful and lucky to have joined Furin. Their leader is truly remarkable. No wonder old members like Hiraji respect him so much. Tamiyama, remembering the happy faces of his friends, realizes he's lost everything but can't admit his mistakes to fix them. Instead, he continues to sink into the darkness of loneliness. After taking that punch, Tamiyama must have had some brain damage, turning into a wild beast and attacking fiercely. He still couldn't accept his mistakes, yelling that he didn't need freedom anymore and crazily attacking Yumiya, which disgusted the spectators. Yumiya lay there, taking the blows without fighting back. Tagame felt helpless, knowing Tamiyama was too deep in his own mire to be pulled out. Sakura, furious, yelled out, thinking Yumiya was losing. But Kyotaro told Sakura to shut up and watch, understanding their leader better than anyone else. Above, Tamiyama was exhausted after his relentless assault. Yumiya apologized, saying he didn't mean to push Tamiyama to such despair. But if he didn't, Tamiyama would never escape his self-made quagmire. After saying this, Yumiya comforted his opponent with an embrace, shocking Tamiyama, who had never experienced such kindness. Yumiya recalled their last fight, noting all the misunderstandings. Back then, both were young gang members with extraordinary strength. After Shisutoran withdrew, Tamiyama was the focus, having saved many people. Yumiya remembered Tamiyama's genuine happiness, respected and thanked by everyone. Tamiyama had been eager and joyful back then. Unlike now, he slowly realized what he had lost, becoming silent. That punch from Tamiyama back then was strong because he carried the burden of his comrades, determined not to let Shisutoran lose. Now, with only Togame left, Tamiyama's old comrades were gone, and his new ones felt fear instead of camaraderie. Togame was moved, grateful for Yumiya's words. Tamiyama, frightened by the disparity in strength and experience, threw a few more punches, but Yumiya's expression remained unchanged. Yumiya reminded Tamiyama of his potential to become a great leader of Shisutoran again, using a powerful headbutt to drive the point home. The decisive move. Tamiyama was lost in his memories, recalling his past happiness, carefree even in fights. The current leader hoped Tamiyama would one day take over Shisutoran and make it better. Tamiyama wished for that happiness to last forever. But looking back, he saw only darkness, realizing he had trampled over those happy memories. In the darkness, Tagame had been protecting those memories, sacrificing a lot for Tamiyama. Tamiyama regretted not realizing sooner. The deeper she fell into despair. When she opened her eyes, she saw Tagame beside her, crying for her. The atmosphere in Shisutoran was very calm at that moment. Tamiyama realized she had lost, but felt a sense of relief. She smiled and told her friend that she had dreamt of the old days when their group was always happy, and she wished to return to those times. Tamiyama understood something important. As long as her friends and teammates were happy, she would naturally wear a happy smile too. She hoped Tagame would stop looking sad and smile like before. Unexpectedly, she also apologized, acknowledging her own responsibility in the situation. Tagame had left her friend alone in loneliness and failed to understand what Yumiya had said earlier. If she had paid more attention to his feelings, things might not have gone so far. Becoming the executioner instead of Tamiyama caused the other members to distance themselves from their leader. Tagame's initial goal was for everyone to love Tamiyama like before, but unintentionally, she made the situation worse. Though she knew her actions were wrong, she still went along with Tamiyama's wishes without resisting. During the fight with Sakura, she realized she should have stopped the leader as a member of Shisutoran. Unfortunately, she didn't have the courage to speak up or act at that time. Tamiyama felt warm hearing these apologies, even though she was the cause of it all. Her friend took part of the blame. Initially, she thought being a leader would be fun and she would have everything, like the joy of finding a treasure. As a leader, she would be closest to the treasure. Tamiyama thought she would have everything and be freer than anyone else. Maybe she was too greedy thinking that way. Joy must be shared to be meaningful. When she opened that treasure chest and found it empty, it was like her soul, alone in loneliness. She lost her direction, not knowing how to escape the solitude. As a result, she blamed others for her unhappiness, seeking strength from all members, thinking if the whole team was strong, everyone would be free, and she would be happy. Tagame didn't take anything from her. She was free from the start, but destroyed that freedom unknowingly due to her youth. After accepting this truth, Tamiyama's soul stabilized. She thanked Tagame for always searching for her in the darkness and apologized for causing the pure boy's face to be tainted. Hearing this, Tagame burst into tears, seeing her friend's face brightening. Both cried over their fate, regretting not waking up sooner. After a while, Tamiyama suddenly made the final judgment for her mistakes. She took off her coat, bowed to Yumiya, and wanted to hand over the guild to him, asking him to take care of everyone. Seeing this, Togame did the same, ready to give up everything to follow Tamiyama. However, Yumiya refused. He told Tamiyama that she had made the deal on her own, and he had never agreed to it. Yumiya didn't want the gang to expand too much, as that would bring countless complications. He saw this as a friendly match, where winning or losing didn't matter. Yumiya suggested that from now on, the two sides should be friends. Then, in his signature style as the leader of Furin High School, He lovely dispersed the crowd,